And congratulations to the member for Luton South for securing this debate. I don't think there's enough chance to talk about youth services in our parliamentary debates, and so I'm really glad of this opportunity because I think youth work is so important. And I'm surprised not to see more members here, no members from the Conservative Party except for the Minister here, because it's an issue for all our constituents across the country. I'd like to pay tribute to some of the youth work that goes on in my constituency, to Regenerate, to Group 64 at the Putney Arts Centre, to Free to Be for LGBTQ+ young people, for the many church youth workers that we have, to the Amadea Youth Movement, to the Guides, Brownies and Scouts and Sea Cadets and sports clubs, and to SW15 Music, who provide affordable music lessons, and to Love to Learn, where I used to work, which provides youth work for children from an asylum-seeking refugee background, and to Wandsworth Council and all the youth workers, especially in Roehampton Base, for all the amazing work they do with our young people in increasingly difficult circumstances. And it's those difficult circumstances that I want to focus on today. In the 1990s, I was a youth worker. I worked for the Methodist Association of Youth Clubs, working with young people across the country. And I've been a passionate advocate for youth services since then, because I saw the essential work that youth workers do to enable access to skills, mental health support, support for whole of families and good relationships, a safe space to boost self-esteem, have fun, try out challenges and skills, and see a different future, potentially, than the one that you have around you, because you're meeting up with other young people and having a range of experiences. Regenerate is a fantastic youth work centre in my constituency, and they describe a stool with 3 legs. One is families, one is school, and one is informal youth work. And you need all 3 of those legs, but I feel currently that one of those legs has been cut off, and we've been hearing about the statistics from other members. According to reports by the National Youth Agency and the YMCA, youth services have been cut by an astonishing 73% since 2010. Annual spending has dropped by £1 billion. 4,500 qualified youth workers have been lost from the front line. In London, over £240 million was cut from youth services budgets between 2011 and 2021, and those cuts are continuing. Half of young people across the country don't have access to a youth service, don't know what's available in their area. And where voluntary and community groups have sought to fill this void, there is a crisis in volunteer recruitment as well, which was made worse by the pandemic, with a shortfall of at least 40,000 adult volunteers. What this amounts to is 14 long years of letting down our young people. And for me, there's no more damning indictment to 14 years of the Conservative cuts than the closed and decaying Alton Youth Club building and Roehampton Youth Club building, both in the middle of one of the most deprived estates in Wandsworth and in London, and yet sitting there where we walk past every day, seeing where there used to be a youth club and it's now completely closed. And those youth workers that I've spoken to said they built up great relationships and trust of local families that can't be rebuilt very quickly at all. It's going to take a long time to rebuild our youth services. We can't talk, and the government can't talk about social mobility and talk about levelling up without also talking about supporting youth services. Not only have the government failed when it comes to investing in youth services and community spaces dedicated to youth services, but the government's approach is also really fragmented and uncoordinated. The Home Office funds some youth services aimed at reducing violent crime. The Department for Work and Pensions commissions some employment-focused youth programmes. The Department for Culture, Media and Sport funded some of the buildings of new youth centres. And there doesn't seem to be a whole streamlined strategy to look at this in the round. And then you add in all the cuts to local government, and you have a perfect storm of failure of our young people. There should be a streamlined strategy to ensure that there's a base level of universal open access youth services. Young people must be a priority. It's imperative that the government acts to prevent these missed opportunities for young people to get the support they need, and from which we all benefit from as a society. The real-world impact of both the cuts and the patchwork approach to provision of youth services is damning. The youth charity Onside found that 24% of young respondents to its recent survey reported that they do not have a safe space to go where they feel they belong, and with nowhere else to turn without the guidance, encouragement and mentoring that young people crave and that youth workers are excellent at providing, those abandoned do not go to those who do not have their best interests at heart, make bad decisions in many cases, and do not have the support they need to stop things like crime and antisocial behaviour in our communities. As the All-Party Parliamentary Group for Knife Crime has made clear in a previous report, each reduction in the number of youth centres corresponds to an increase in knife crime. Research from the University of Warwick bore this out. They found that crime participation amongst 10 to 15-year-olds increased by 10% in those London boroughs most affected by youth centre closures between 2010 and 2019. There's also a mental health cost to these cuts, a skills cost, because this also has gone hand in hand with cuts to careers advisors in schools, and a social cost of youth services closure. But it goes hand in hand with a deep-reaching economic cost as well, with youth work saving £500 million on public spending through crime reduction alone. Instead of letting down yet another generation of young people, Labour does have a plan. Young Futures will be a new cross-government national programme aimed at giving Britain's young people the best start in life. Each community will be offered a Young Futures hub, and I cannot wait to see these opened in my constituency. They will bring together mental health specialists, youth workers, neighbourhood police officers to finally give young people the start in life that they deserve, but has been missing out on for far too long. So, Chair, to conclude, there is a serious crisis in youth work caused by years of cuts and not valuing youth work, youth workers and young people. This has been stopping young people from achieving their potential. Youth work reduces crime, enables access to skills, engagement in education, good relationships and whole family support. It improves mental and physical health and, yes, happiness. Action must be taken to value and invest in youth services. And normally at the end of speeches in here, I say to the Government Minister, please can we hear your plan? But I don't believe that there is going to be a good plan. And so I can only hope for a Labour government to start changing around our youth service investment as soon as possible. Thank you.